The U.S. government has given billions of dollars to businesses in an effort to curb the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will begin to pursue recouping these funds in 2021. Aggressive penalties will be imposed on companies that do not follow regulations and guidelines for proper use of these funds. Criminal charges are already being levied on fraudulent use. Don't suffer again. Get a customized business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services for your company today. BOSS packages include entity formation, payroll, accounting and bookkeeping, tax planning, tax filings, and quarterly strategy sessions to minimize your tax liability, increase efficiency, and maximize your profits. Make your appointment today at elite8financial.com. Get the guidance, tools, and protection your business needs now. Get BOSS. Get behind the shield.
Welcome to the Business Operations Success Suite. This is Boss Talk Radio. I'm your host, George Dandridge. We got an exciting show for you today. We're going to talk about matchmaking, its place in society today, and just a general, landscape of dating as a whole, and what it means for successful people and why they may be able to benefit from this service. Before we get into that, though, read some stuff earlier and want to drop a little tax tip on you guys. So I think they called it Manic Monday. We had an extreme dip in almost every popular cryptocurrency. Said that it wiped out about $500 billion in wealth. And of course, we know that these monies aren't really wiped out. They just transfer to other people. People snatch the bag and, count their profits and left. But I'm in a few different groups, and one of the things that I see a lot is people are telling this lie about cryptocurrency not being taxable. Within the federal updates to the tax law, there's a question included in the due diligence that says, did you sell, trade, or purchase anything with cryptocurrency? Now, you can go ahead and lie on this form if you will, but here's where most of y'all drop the ball. Some of you can't keep anything off of social media. So on the one hand, you're telling the IRS, well, no, I didn't do anything with cryptocurrency. And then you have 50 threads on your profile that says you became a millionaire with crypto, it changed your life, you paid off this, you paid off that, and everything. And you do this as if the United States government cannot see your profile just because it's private. Ha ha ha. Anyway, these are very much taxable transactions. I suggest that you consult a tax professional before investing in crypto, but definitely before making any sales trades or taking out the bag when it comes to crypto. Now, of course, there's a level to that. That part is the tip. As far as the how-to, you guys will have to go ahead and make an appointment. If you need help with tax as it relates to cryptocurrency, you can hit us up online at elite8financial.com/appointments, or you can call us to schedule an appointment at 866-2ELITE8. That's 866-235-4838, and we'll be happy to assist you with that. So next up, we're excited about today's guest, Miss Brooke Fitzpatrick. She is the owner of Mosaic Matchmaking, and we're going to have some fun today. You always say, well, it's always business all the time. And of course, there's a business component to this and whatever, but we're going to have some fun with it today. So I'm going to do something that I do every blue moon. I'm going to go ahead and post the link for you guys in the second half hour of the show so that you can come aboard and ask some questions live on on the show or whatever and render some of your opinions as well. Welcome to Boss Talk Radio.
Welcome to Boss Talk Radio, the #1 online business and entrepreneurial talk show. Brought to you by Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services.
Boss Talk Radio, keeping it real, yeah, that's for sure. I said a Boss Talk Radio, here for your needs, we'll crack the code. He the boss.
He gon' fix your situation like there ain't no time for wasting. We ain't playing when we saying
He the boss.
And if you ever have a problem, he gon' show you how to solve it. Listen in and he'll show you he the boss.
Talk
Here's your host, the sexy tax expert, George Dandridge.
Boss Talk Radio, here for your needs, we'll crack the code. He the boss.
So there's not a single day that I get on social media, right, and I don't see what I call the war of the genders. And it's funny because this goes like from everything from married to single, child support, paying half, all of these different like crazy scenarios. And there seems to be, I won't say a unanimous standpoint on it, but there's definitely some majority rules in this situation. And it seems like with every passing year, they kind of, the roles and everything kind of diminish, who feels they're right, who feels they're wrong, never been a woman, so I can't speak on that part. I can say that for guys, sometimes it's frustrating because there's this equanimity discussion, right? Where, and rightfully so, I mean, it ranges from everything from pay to carrying household loads and things of that nature, where women feel as though pay should be equitable. Household burdens should be equitable, so forth and so on. And I think for guys, the only challenge that comes with that is they're like, okay, we can do that, but in doing that, where's this balance where women want this traditional role that their parents or grandparents may have had, where the guy is the quote unquote provider and takes care of all the bills and so forth and so on. Some people ask, well, if the guy's paying all the bills, what do the women do with their money and things of that nature? And to me, this comes back to that conversation of equally yoked. I don't think there's a greater challenge than people who are 35 plus and are either settled in their careers or have established some success in business, and for either never having been married or been divorced and trying to get back out there, trying to mitigate these crazy waters of dating and expectations. And so our guest today actually owns Mosaic matchmaking service. So we're going to bring her to the stage and let her give her her background and talk about what it is that she does. And then we're going to get into a real candid conversation about, where this thing has a real value in the marketplace. We'll be back right after this.
So one of the questions was, how was our experience in comparison to with Elite 8 in comparison to other tax professional services? And I think I'll just kind of turn that over to my husband and what he would think.
Being from the military services, during the past, I would always use a online service throughout the military. And one thing I didn't like about it is not able to speak to someone live. And since I've been with Elite 8, having that person live in front of me has been great rewarding. If me and my wife had to recommend Elite 8 to a family or friend, one of the strong attributes would be confidence. As a leader in the United States military, I've always been confident. And since my post-retirement, when I'm utilizing a business, I want to make sure they're confident in their answers and their tax preparation.
Get behind the shield.
Welcome back. We're live on Boss Talk Radio. Welcome our guest today, Miss Brooke Fitzpatrick. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So break this thing down for us. Give us a little bit about your background and tell us about Mosaic Matchmaking.
Absolutely, I'd love to. So I am Brooke Fitzpatrick, and I have always just had a love for connecting people. And so I got married to my husband. We're going on 5 years now married. And I just remember how my dating journey was, especially as a Black woman. There's statistics that show that we are the less likely to get chosen on dating apps. And then when you look at our group compared to other ethnicities, Black women are the most, have the most unmarried women in their group. And so I was having a conversation with one of my girlfriends last summer, and she was telling me all of these dating horror stories. And it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because I'd have conversations with my friends all the time. And I realized that the dating scene had not changed since I was in it about 5 years ago. And so I decided that, you know what, let me see how can I, close this gap, because I already like connecting people. I already enjoy playing matchmaker in my free time. And so I started doing a lot of research into the matchmaking industry and the dating services industry in general. And one thing that kind of shocked me and was a little overwhelming for me is when I would go on these different matchmakers' websites, the language was all about exclusivity. This is for elite. You would go on their website and it would be a sea of white faces. You wouldn't see hardly any people of color. And then the few people of color you did see would be, light, very fair, light skin, pressed hair, or it would be someone that looked like they were mixed with white. And so that's when I decided that, there's a gap in this market that I am up for the challenge to fill, because I enjoy doing it anyway. And so that's when I decided to launch my actual matchmaking business. And since then, I've gone and gotten a matchmaking certification. And also I do a lot of research and reading into dating and relationships. So that's a little bit about me and how I got to where I am now.
So what are some of the key performance indicators as to whether or not someone should be a match? Is it still largely a trial and error when they get together to see if there's a chemistry, or is there a little bit of science applied to this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'll talk a little bit about my process, the way I do things. So with all of my clients, we start with a discovery call just to make sure that we're a good fit to work together. I ask them a little bit of questions about themselves, understanding what their long-term dating goals are, also the type of guy or woman that they're looking for. But then our process starts with 2 sessions where I go into really deep details to understand their lifestyle, their background, their motivations. And then we have a second session where we dive in to their dating preferences. And I'm also looking at things like their love language. I get them to do a personality assessment. So I'm using all of that data to help guide me in my search. So when you were asking kind of like what goes into making a good match, compatibility is one. So whenever I am looking for a match for one of my clients, I am always checking to see, what type of lifestyles are they living? Are they living a similar lifestyle to my clients? Personality wise, are they going to be a balance for each other? I'll give you an example. If somebody is a workaholic and someone works all the time, well, I would want to match them with someone who isn't, because I'd want them to bring balance, right? I'd want them to say, hey, we're going to go away for the weekend and we're not going to bring our laptops. Or, hey, you know what? It's 8 o'clock at night. It's time to put your phone away, put your laptop away, and us to eat dinner. So that's a little bit about my process and what I think about when it comes to actually matching my clients.
So do you ever find that in that initiation, do you ever find that lots of times people don't really even understand what they want or what's really best for them in the dating scene? Because when we talk about preferences, sometimes people's perceived preferences may not actually line up with their love language. And that's largely why they have that cycle of failed interactions, because they haven't really self-identified. Do you find that common in your practice when you're first engaging?
Yeah, when I'm first engaging with people, I always love to talk about these preferences, right? Because one thing that as a matchmaker, I tell my clients, I am going to be very realistic and real with you, and I'm here to help you, right? So if there are any preferences that I see as issues, for example, I always will point those out. This is something I make sure I do in my discovery calls too, because as I mentioned, before I take a client on, I want to make sure that I feel like they're going to be able to take my coaching, my feedback. They're going to be receptive to what I'm sharing with them. So when I have someone on the discovery call, before I even get to the signing part where they're going to become a client, and they're telling me, oh, I want someone who is this unicorn, basically, that I want them to be 6 feet tall. They need to make 6 figures. I don't want them to have any children. They need to be Christian. They need to have a good relationship with their family. All of these things, it's like, okay, well, I give them my feedback. And if they're receptive to it or not, that depends on, okay, they may not be a good client for me if they don't appreciate me being realistic. The other part of that, George, is you also have to think about the numbers and the dating pool. I have to be very realistic. And, you have to consider, out of this pool, how many people are single, would want you, and also meet all of your qualifications and your preferences. No, not would want you in a bad way. Like, I'm telling you, all my clients are beautiful, but let's be realistic. Everybody's not attracted to everyone, right? So it's kind of like, out of this pool, the people who have these qualifications, would they desire an introduction to you in the first place?
I actually ask that question a lot of times, and I do it in different ways, because I've seen where oftentimes with men, it's extreme physical trait combined with some maternal characteristics or whatever. And on the flip side, with women, and a lot of times they contradict themselves on this. On the one hand, it's like this financial platform, but then they're like, that's not a hard line if it's this, and this. And then it becomes a question for me. I'm looking at numbers, is like, okay, well, men, specifically single heterosexual men that have higher earnings, that number gets smaller.
Yeah.
When you're talking about single. And so
Absolutely.
Then my question turns around to women and be like, okay, of all the women that's out there, what qualifies you, to get their attention? And I'm sure in your process, there's much more that goes into this. And I ask guys the same thing, like, okay, well, you make a comfortable living, you're not struggling for anything outside of compatibility, but you want this Serena Williams or Mary J. Blige look, and you're bordering on, Fat Albert yourself, it make it make sense.
Yeah. And I'm glad you pointed out that it goes both ways. I think a lot of times this conversation is always geared towards the women who have all these preferences and qualifications, but men can be the exact same way. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It's not necessarily just on one gender.
Mm-hmm. And so do you come across a lot of people that really need to see a psychiatrist prior to getting into the dating space? Because and I don't have the science behind it or the knowledge and wherewithal, but it seems to me that too often people jump off the porch into the dating pool without having healed, not only from their last relationship, but oftentimes from childhood traumas or what have you.
Absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, that does happen. And, when I am qualifying people on the discovery call, and also just in general, like as a matchmaker, I make it a point to talk to singles all the time, not just people who are interested or are going to pay to work with me. But that is definitely a common thing. And I think for me as a matchmaker, I try to make sure that I am not wasting anyone's time if they're not necessarily relationship ready, an intentional relationship ready, because I focus on intentional relationships. And so the thing is, I can hook you up and introduce you to these people But if you're not ready for a relationship, no matter what I do, it's not going to work out. You're not going to have the foundation to have to build a relationship with this person. And so, yes, to answer your question, I think that I know that I have come across several singles that are not healed from, as you mentioned, past relationships or even past traumas in their childhood or them growing up. So yeah, unfortunately, that has been something that I've had to address. And in those situations, I am starting to realize that it's time for me to start partnering with some therapists or at least maybe relationship coaches to refer those to.
Wow. We're talking to Ms. Brooke Fitzpatrick, founder of Mosaic Matchmaking. We'll be back right after this.
This is Dr. Tamia Gass with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.
Finding your brand space in this ever-changing economy can be challenging to new and established businesses. Graphic Line Media can help launch your business's brand potential to unknown places with creative revisioning that relentlessly presses the competition. From graphic design, web, print, apparel, media, and social, we have something designed to grow your business. Don't hesitate. Rule your space. Visit Graphic Line Media at graphiclinemedia.com or join our Facebook page at Graphic Line Media to get special discounts and offers.
Knowledge, integrity, security, service. Get behind the shield.
So, Brooke, prior to the break, you said something that really threw me for a loop, and it kind of seems like it ties to the old adage of opposites attract. You were saying that if you found somebody or someone came to you and they're kind of a workaholic, you'd match them with someone who wasn't to create balance. But do you ever find that almost instantly creates a conflict?
I think what happens whenever people start dating is they have to really learn each other and understand each other's boundaries, right? So until you understand someone's boundaries, then yeah, there is going to be some friction. But what counts is how you respond and react to their boundaries. So I'll give you the example when I was talking about the balance. So if you understand that, hey, my partner is a workaholic, but that's not what they want to be. They actually want to change. They want to have that balance. And they're okay with me communicating to them like, hey, you're not having that balance right now. It's time to turn it off. It's time to shut it off. We're going to go away. It's time for us to take a break. So that, yes, that can work out. Now, if it's people who don't want to change and they aren't really looking for someone to balance them out, they're a workaholic and that's what they love, that's like what they plan on continuing to do, well then yeah, there would be more friction. So that's why that's why I'm telling you that when it comes to boundaries and understanding and kind of figuring each other out and their expectations and understanding how you can communicate those in the best way.
Let's talk about this term came up. I think I first seen it maybe 4 years ago. I don't know when it really actually came into play, but there was this term that came up called situationships. And I'm not clear on the meaning, but it seems like to me that the art, if you would, of getting to know people and seeing or allowing it to take its natural progression has completely disappeared from society. It's almost like, and I remember back when I was single at a space where it was like the first time in forever, it was like if you had a second date, you were unknowingly in a relationship by the other person's expectation. Like, well, wait a minute, when did I sign up for that? What do you tell people as it relates to managing the expectation and allowing things to progress?
Yeah, I love this question. So first, I will tell people that there is no such thing as these situationships or entanglements, because you are single and free to explore other options until you and that person have had a conversation about being exclusive and you two are on the same page about where your relationship is headed. So that's the first thing I always recommend to people. Don't guess, don't assume that you're, in a relationship with someone. Don't assume that both of you are exclusive. You two need to have a conversation where you are saying, this is what we're agreeing to, this is why, and this is where we want this relationship to progress to. So that's what I have to say on that. And then allowing things to progress naturally. Of course, the whole idea here is that you want to get to know this person. Typically, people are dating for marriage, or at least because they want a long-term committed relationship. So, you obviously take time to get to know that person before jumping into something. You should be asking them questions. You should be understanding what's their lifestyle. How do they do things? Do I see myself fitting into their current lifestyle? Do I see them fitting into my current lifestyle? Are we compatible? Is there chemistry? Am I attracted to this person? So that's what you should be thinking about first. And then once you feel like this has potential to go somewhere, make sure you have that conversation, because until there's a conversation, then essentially you are still in that, what I like to say, I call it courting phase, but you are still getting to know each other. Are going steady, as they say on the Cosby Show.
Why do you think that conversation? Well, two-part question. When is the appropriate time to have that conversation? And why do you think this conversation rarely ever happens, like short of a marriage proposal?
Yeah, so I think the conversation's important to have once you two have been seeing each other or talking on a consistent basis. Both of you realize, like, what, I want to take this relationship seriously or to the next level. I want to eliminate us dating other people. I'd like to focus my attention on getting to know this one person. This is the person I think I want to get to know better for the purposes of marriage. I think that's when you need to start thinking about having that conversation about being exclusive. And with that being said, the reason why I think people delay it or don't have it is because I think some people are afraid to have the conversation because they don't know what's going to come out of it. Especially, when you've been talking to someone and you like them, it's easy for you to say, like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. Or, oh, I don't want them to feel like I'm giving them an ultimatum, or I'm not exactly sure how they feel. But at the end of the day, we're adults, and to be in a healthy relationship, you have to have these conversations. You have to be able to communicate with each other. And also, if, you are dating someone and you have to second guess how they feel, then do you even want to be exclusive with that person? Because I remember when my husband and I became exclusive, there was no confusion on how we felt about each other. We both understood that, hey, I'm really feeling this person. We're seeing each other every day. We're talking every day. So just have those hard conversations, because you're going to have them. If you want a good, healthy relationship, those conversations are going to come up all the time. So start with the exclusive talk. I promise it will be worth it. It's a win-win situation.
And I find that what you just mentioned is usually where the assumption starts to take place. Like, once there's an amount of time spent, there's just this assumption made that, okay, we're together. And then let's talk about this other part of expectation where, since everybody's abusing the word normalize, I'm going to ask it that way. Can we normalize people not getting in their feelings prior to the exclusive conversation? Like, I see often where people have gone out, they're seeing each other, they're hanging out, they're spending time. There's never been a conversation of exclusivity. And then one of them sees something on a social media page, or sees a phone call or whatever, and they go off the left handle, and it's like, wait, when did this happen? When did I sign up for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what I will say with that is, again, until you two have the conversation and become exclusive, then assume that they are going to be dating other people, or that they might be seeing or entertaining other people. Now, it becomes complicated whenever, you are spending a lot of time. Like you said, it is easy to assume because you're like, oh, they're spending all their time with me. Surely they're not entertaining anybody else. Like, they want to make that assumption. But on that same footing too, I think it's also important to be transparent about it. So if you are dating someone, let them know, like, hey, I'm exploring my other options, or let them know, like, hey, don't make yourself always accessible to them. You have a life outside of them, live it. And so I think that, I do agree that there should be a level of transparency there. If you are entertaining and talking to more than one person, and especially if you're on social media, let them know, like, hey, I'm exploring my other options. Don't lead people on and make it think within your power. Don't allow people to think that you might be the only person that they're talking to if that's not the truth.
So earlier you mentioned dating with intent for either marriage or, at a bare minimum, a long-term relationship. I often see different mindsets on that. And so here's what I usually use to challenge people on that. You never see someone from across the street and say, oh, that's a really nice gentleman, or that's a really incredible woman, or whatever the case may be. That first magnetization is always a physical thing. Do you advise, if a person, let's say it's a woman that is specifically dating for marriage, how does she mitigate the process between getting to know someone and the red flags of, well, this person's trying to get to know me, but not for the same reason that I want to get to know them?
Yeah. So are you saying someone who might be like trying to take advantage of other aspects of, without like genuinely wanting to get to know them and date them for like marriage? Is that what your question is?
Well, because some people want to date for fun and companionship or whatever, and they, want to allow marriage or even a relationship to progress naturally. And I think that there's such a, for lack of a better word, forced expectation on, especially when there's a, anything remotely discussed about exclusivity, that, okay, this is definitely where that's going. And then there seems to be kind of an animosity build if you go to step past that and you find out, well, this person intended to complete this set of goals in their life before they were considering that, or you were looking at a family. Like, I had a conversation with a guy who was at the end of his wits because he wanted a family, and he had been dating this same girl for about a year and a half, and she was like just really taking off in her career. It wasn't that she didn't want to have a family or didn't want to have kids, but she saw divine order, in her opinion, and he was more settled where he was, and he wasn't feeling that. And it was like, okay, so do you guys cut it off? Do you, mitigate the waters and compromise? Like, how do you advise that? Because a lot of times, I think one of the things that people fail at when it comes to, especially if it starts as a entanglement situationship, is that people aren't friends anymore. Prior to this, and this intoxication about marriage is usually not an intoxication about marriage. It's usually an intoxication about a wedding. And I always tell people, well, after the wedding, you got two things. You have pictures and each other. So you better know what
really,
so,
yeah.
how do you get people to get back to enjoying each other as friends? Because I think if you can be friends with people and find so much common ground as a friend, that's really like the foundation to that thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Communicating and then having a genuine interest in getting to know each other. Communication is key, especially when you were giving the example about the guy that you had spoken to. You should not be in a relationship or, talking to someone for months and not understanding, where they stand on with big things like values with family, kids, stuff like that. What I also will say that I coach and tell people is that you're not going to be able to change people. You have to take them at their word, because something that I've seen people do is, they'll say that, someone, for instance, someone who may not want kids, right? Like you mentioned, that person may not change their mind. You can't date and get into a relationship with them with the hope that they're going to change their minds, because that may not happen, right? And now you've wasted all this time. You've invested all this time. And like you said, George, you want to get upset. But they've told you from the beginning that, hey, I don't want kids. I don't know why you thought this would change. Also understanding what obstacles are things that they want to accomplish, what goals they have for themselves. So especially for, I'll use the example for men, because I know with a lot of men, before they want to have the family, before they want to get married, there are certain goals and things that they want to achieve themselves, because they want to make sure men are providers. They want to make sure they can provide for this family that they're signing up for. And so if, have those conversations, understand like, hey, before you make a step to get married, and not even talking about marrying me in general, what are some things that you want to have accomplished? Or what are some things on your to-do list? Or what are some of your goals before you feel like you would be able to get married or even want to take on a wife or even start a family? So communication is key. And also just remembering that you can't change people. Sometimes people change, but you have no control over that. So don't hold out hope that someone will change.
That was strong right there. I see that a lot of times. That part about take people at their word. I always hear ladies say, well, they should tell me this or tell me that. And oftentimes I've witnessed it be told is like, yeah, no, they told you. You just thought it was going to do something else. Or whatever later. We're talking to Brooke Fitzpatrick. We're going to be back right after this.
Ready to begin your business? Should you be an LLC or a C corporation? How do you track the cost of goods versus operating supplies? What are your depreciable assets? Are you structured to obtain business credit? Not sure? Get a boss. An individual business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services will position your business for success and avoid the pitfalls of startups. From registering with your state, operating agreements, bookkeeping, tax filings, and more, Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services can be your growth partner at every level of your business. Schedule your needs assessment today at www.elite8financial.com/boss or by phone at 469-412-0056.
This is Dr. Tamia Guest with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.
I paid the call to be born. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, the link is up on the screen where you can drop into Boss Talk Radio and ask Brooke any questions or give some feedback on your perspective. And of course, you know me, it's about to get hot in here because we're going to talk about the uncomfortable stuff now. So we right before the break, we were talking about taking people at their word, listening to what they say. And I think that's a two-sided equation that just does not exist. People hear things and in their mind, they're going to, change it or change a person or whatever. And then you're left, feeling a kind of way when it didn't work out that way. So the next part of this, we're going to talk about money, 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 money. When is the right time to discuss money in the relationship Does the exclusivity conversation come first, or should there be a conversation that kind of exposes some habits and thought processes prior to ever having an exclusivity conversation?
Yeah, I think you should have a good read on that before you even become exclusive. Because if that's one of your values, if financial stability, someone who manages money, if that's something that's important to you, yeah, you want to know that before that exclusivity conversation comes up. And, obviously having those talks, but also observing their behaviors. People, actions speak louder than words. So are they at the mall every weekend? Are they online shopping every single day? I mean, we have a pretty decent read on before even knowing someone's salary based on what they do. You can have a pretty decent read if they can afford to go out to 5-star restaurants every weekend, or if they can afford to online shop and spend thousands of dollars on Amazon every week. So I definitely say observe those behaviors and then talk money before that exclusivity conversation.
Interesting. So I've seen people say that, they want to talk about your credit report and whatnot on the first date.
Now, I don't know if I'm about to say, I wouldn't recommend credit reports on the first date. That's not something I would necessarily recommend because honestly, first dates are for establishing common interests, getting to know this person. So before you also have to think about what are people comfortable disclosing, right? That's pretty personal. So there needs to be a level of like, hey, I'm interested in you. You're interested in me. We see this potentially taking off somewhere. So yeah, you want them to have a little bit of skin in the game before you just ask them about their credit report and how much money they make.
Well, the other part to that to me is that, what do you find like dismissive? Because to be honest, in the business that I'm in, I know some people with great credit. I mean, great credit. But they have, in my opinion, bad money habits because their income is here and they're living here. They're paying their bills, but that gap is also filled by bouncing credit back to one to the other or whatever. So they're not liquid at all, which to me is a terrible, terrible money habit or whatever. And you talked about, seeing if somebody shops all the time or if they go out all the time. And the question of is it affordable or what have you? I unfortunately have to have the conversation oftentimes when divorces come up, with clients. It's a question of, okay, have you thought about, the tax planning, so forth and so on. And all they're really thinking about is that first year, how can I get the most out of this without them getting this or getting that? And it's like, that's not it. Y'all should have had that conversation prior to you getting married, honestly. But when this comes up, this topic of money, how do you really mitigate the hard lines and the compromises when it comes to matching people up? Like for me, a hard line is people that are just like consumers, like they just want to consume or whatever that's unnecessary or whatever, and they don't believe in savings. That's a no for me. Not even compromising. But one of the ones that you hear commonly on social media today, almost every day, I'm sure if I went on social media right now, within 30 seconds, I could find 3 threads with it. This conversation about providing and what does that look like? So it usually comes up with the conversation of quote unquote half or paying half or whatever the case may be. But here's the catch-22 to that. Most women that I know would not be willing to live on what that man alone could provide. They always feel like, well, whatever he's providing, then I can go out and get more by doing me or having my own or whatever. when they're pressed, they'll say, well, we add to him, or if he has a hard time, or if this or that happens, we're there to back him up or whatever. And I find that most guys today just aren't feeling that conversation, because their justification for half is that if this thing ends, you're going to take half. So how do you mitigate these hard lines and compromises when it comes to money?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's important is you have to, for singles who want to get married and date, you have to visualize the type of lifestyle that you want, right? So say, for instance, if you're a saver, then you understand like, hey, my future spouse and I, we are going to save money, but we're also going to have money to go on a trip or a vacation every year. So I always tell, my coaching clients especially, I share with them, like, you need to envision the life you want to have and where money comes in, how your spending habits with your family, what are things, especially if y'all have children already, or if y'all want to have children, what type of expenses are y'all going to have, a college savings? These are all types of things that they should be thinking about. And then when it comes to actually matching them with someone, I try to make sure I get someone who has similar money values. Now, when I was talking about that balance, this is typically not something that can balance each other out. I want people to have similar spending habits and view money in a similar way when it comes to matching, because we know that, I know, especially George, that finances, that is one of the leading causes for divorce. And so if you're not on the same page there, then there's not a whole lot else that can help you.
Well, let's get into the entrepreneurs, the business owners. Let's talk about matchmaking and whatnot. So in my peer group, a lot of business owners, a lot of single business owners on all different levels. Yeah. One of the things that they all have in common is that they wear many, many hats. They have some freedom. However, their priorities shift moment to moment, right? Absolutely. So should business owners / entrepreneurs only date other business owners and entrepreneurs? Because what I found is that people who aren't either entrepreneurs and or business minded tend to use this line, well, people make time for what they want. And the business owners going, hey, you want to be with somebody successful, or you want to be with somebody that's just, making time for what they want? How do you matchmake the entrepreneur that's, ever grinding, not because they just want to be a workaholic, but, their receipts aren't, calculated at Friday on 3:00, like they got to get it when it's there to get it?
Look, absolutely. I completely understand that. I'm an entrepreneur myself, so I get it. So in that case, I wouldn't say that I would only match them or they should only date other entrepreneurs or business owners at all. It really comes down to people's understanding and compassion and tolerance for that lifestyle, right? So I have some great people that who they may not be business owners or entrepreneurs themselves, but they may have been around it. Their father may have been an entrepreneur or a business owner. One of their best friends might be an entrepreneur or a business owner. So they're like, you know what? I get it. I completely understand. I can hold down the fort while they have to go take this emergency meeting. So I think what it boils down to is someone who is going to understand, be compassionate, and also supportive. Like, hey, look, I know that you have to take this call. We need to secure this bag. So you go ahead and do what you need to do. So that's what I look for when it comes to, someone I'd be matching with the entrepreneur or a business owner.
But what about everybody wants time and attention, right? So how do you, so should the entrepreneur that's unable to provide that just take themselves off the dating market?
Yeah, let's be real. If you are at a point in your life where you are working so hard and you can't even make time to date and get to know someone, well, then you have to reevaluate your priorities, right? So I'm not saying your business isn't important. It is. But if you don't have enough time to even date and get to know someone, well, then how is it going to work? And so I'm not saying you need to, set aside a lot of time, but think about your schedule and say, you know what, Thursdays at 5 o'clock, I can get off early. I can block my calendar. This is the time where I am going to commit to dating, whether that's getting on the app, whether that's actually going out and spending time with a significant other or someone that you are trying to get to know. So to your point, there has to be a happy medium. Like, you can't just expect someone to be okay with you neglecting them all the time. But if it's a priority for you, you have to understand that you're going to have to make the time.
I was talking to a good friend of ours the other day, it was about a week ago, and that exact same sentence came up about, if it's a priority to you, you have to make it work on your side. We're talking to Brooke Fitzpatrick. If you have any questions, go ahead and chime in. The link is on the screen. StreamYard.com/. I'm not about to try to read all of that. You can see Brooke over at mosaicmatchmaking.com. Any other contact information you want to provide to them, social media or anything?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the same, at Mosaic Matchmaking. Definitely follow me there for some content, and I announce any type of events and special things I have going on my social media. So definitely follow me on Instagram at Mosaic Matchmaking.
Awesome. So what piece of advice would you give people today, as we talked about a lot of different challenges in the dating world today, from the whole, gender role battles of who should be doing what, to the time commitments, the money part, what's too soon and when. What is the key thing that you would offer to singles out there today, that, because times have changed so much? I mean, social media is like a real thing, and the virtual stuff. The world is shrinking. We're living in a global economy, and people are getting outside. Let me back up. So there used to be a time where a neighborhood was just that, and the reason it was is because a lot of the people in the neighborhood knew each other. There was a lot of the same families in the neighborhood. So when you met somebody, it was often, real young, or somebody that moved in to the neighborhood, and the roots was grounded. Like, you could verify who somebody was through who the people were or whatever. So as we become more educated, we move off for opportunities and everything. Families are, thinned out as to where they are and everything. So you have just different communities or whatever. Oftentimes today, a lot of people don't even know who their neighbors are or whatever, or they may meet them but don't really interact with them or whatever. And so you have this online community, all of these different platforms and everything. People are able to, I don't know if they still say catfish. Do they still say people are able to be, in my old day, we used to talk about the representative in the club. It would be the same thing as on social media, so so you're meeting these representatives and whatnot. How can the single yet intentional person today really filter through all the noise and distractions of everything trying to get their attention and compete for their attention, to really get to that person that they can match up with?
Yeah, you know what? I think I loved all the points you made, but I think it really starts with them understanding themselves and what they're looking for. So really having a good understanding of, hey, this is who I am. These are my values. And this is the type of person that I feel like would fit well in my lifestyle. And also these are the things that I need or want for them to value as well. So when you have a good understanding of, what you want to attract, what you can attract, then it's going to be a little bit easier for you to filter and kind of save yourself some time on the front end. Gotcha.
Well, this has been Boss Talk Radio. We've been talking to Ms. Brooke Fitzpatrick, founder of Mosaic Matchmaking. You guys go and visit mosaicmatchmaking.com, get on their calendar, kind of take yourself through it. If you've tried social media dating, you've tried all the online dating platforms, you've tried hooking up with friends and associates or whatever, you have nothing left to lose. Let a professional take care of what is taken care of. Anything you wanted to leave everybody with?
No, I just really appreciate the time to be able to speak with you. This was amazing, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit more about my story and about my business.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate having you. Keep us abreast of moves you're making and any events over in the Boss Talk Radio group. This has been your host, George Dandridge. We'll see you guys Monday for Boss Motivation. Talk to you soon.
Boss Talk Radio, keeping it real, yeah, that's for sure. I said a Boss Talk Radio, here for your needs, we'll crack the code. He the boss, ooh, he the boss, ooh, yeah, he the boss, he's the boss, he the boss, he the boss.